Pod. Recording this Friday, midday. The Race to One bracket finalized after a massive win last night from Rocky Mountain. This is going to be a pod, our last pod for a couple of days until probably middle of next week, late next week, where we actually are talking about the Race to One. So all you non-Race to One competitors, we've got some stuff in store for you next week. So we'll get the Race to One folks their time in the sun briefly, and then we'll focus on y'all just for one more minute before we forget about you for an off-season. Kidding. All right, what we're doing today, we're going to rank the first-round matchups on both sides of the conference. We're not diving in. These aren't matchups. We've got something planned next week that talks a little bit in more depth about each team. But this is just ranking the matchups, which ones are the best and which ones are not the best. So let's start in the Legacy Conference. And the best matchup, we'll go 4-1. The fourth ranked matchup in the first round is going to be that of Rocky Mountain against Bad Boys. Why is that? Because I don't know how well Bad Boys matches up. Rocky Mountain is super deep. They've got a lot of pieces that are going to be able to, or that should be able to counteract the strengths of Bad Boys. And the strength of Bad Boy is obviously Lorenzo Phenom. You've got great guard play from Rocky Mountain. I think it was important for them to get the number one seed. That's the fourth best matchup in the first round of the Legacy Conference. The third best matchup, or second worst, whichever way you want to go about it, is going to be Gotham 5 reigning Trays. And this is because there's a sexy matchup there in Japhet Towns and Mackenzie Mbako, but there's not a lot of sexy matchups in that one. Mackenzie Mbako, despite, and I still believe this is true, I think he could be a top 6 player in the league right now. His overall production hasn't been that for the entirety of the season, and I think that Gotham 5 is a little deeper with their size than what Reigning Trays. You don't have that, okay, we get this guy versus that guy, and then we get this guy versus that guy, right? There's not multiple layers. There is the Mbako versus Towns matchup. I think that's going to be incredible. That's one to watch. But there's not much beyond that you start saying, hey, how's this going to play out? This is an interesting strategic opportunity for both sides. Our second best matchup, second ranked, we had the numbers right. Originators Beyond the Arch. Really looking forward to what Daniel Ori against DJ Wagner. I think that's an underrated matchup there. If Ori gets going, Wagner had a great game to close out the season. You've got the storyline. The second matchup, Tyson Simpson versus Ilgauskas. It's like the one guy that could potentially cause problems, but at the same time, it's the one guy for Tyson Simpson that could just outright body up Victorious Ilgauskas. So which big guy is actually going to win that one? And then you've got the two different stories. Beyond the Arch, middling team for much of the season. They get hot. At the end of the year, they springboard their way into the 6th seed. Originators, they were running away with the best record in SimWorld Hoops. They lose 4 in a row before winning their last game of the regular season. Which version are we going to get from both sides? Are we going to get the early season Beyond the Arch, or are we going to get the late season Beyond the Arch? Are we going to get the early season, mid-season Originators, or the late season one? There's a lot to unpack there, and that's why I think that's the second best. And then, which I think is the best one, is Beast of the East versus Run DMV. This is two teams that enter with a very untraditional approach, right? If you go through every other team in the top 7, because I'm not going to put Bad Boys up there, in the Legacy Conference, it's very easy to identify who is our best player, okay? Rocky Mountain Monsters is Justin Bell. Originators is DJ Wagner. Beyond the Arch, it's Tyson Simpson. Mackenzie Mbako with Gotham 5. Japhet Towns with Reigning Trays. When you look at Beast of the East and Run DMV, you don't really have that. You don't have that guy. Levin Cutler's good. Farouk Redmond's good. Nick Hugo's good. Kamarian Bracken's good. But none of those guys leap off the page as a number one, and it's why I've been skeptical of them all season long, both of them. But they've also both played massively well in big games. So what's going to end up happening is one of these two teams is going to end up one win from a conference championship game. That's impressive considering how this roster, both of them, are made up. Do I think there's a title champion or a champion within this game? maybe Run DMV has found a way to win big, but that's the other matchup, is the coaching matchup. I think this is the best coached matchup in the first round. That's no disrespect to Kusa versus Coach Dodge. I think that's probably second best. But I think the matchup here between Drayton and Murray is really intriguing. Does Beast of the East play Levin Cutler for a full 32? Does Run DMV play Nick Hugo for a full 32? I think both teams have to do that to pull this off. Neither team is full of size up and down their roster, yet maybe their best player is a big man. And they're not really getting any support behind that from like a bench big man. That's got so many wrinkles to it that just don't exist in the other games. Let's head to the Legend Conference, our fourth best matchup. I'm going to go with Best Coast Ballers and APAC. APAC's been a great story. The fact that they're number 7 seed, I think, though, speaks more to the fact that Lone Star just fell apart at the end of the year. And then you've got Lace Darius Outlaw. The story for Best Coast Ballers is simple. Is Lace Darius Outlaw on his game, or is he not? And the answer to that question, 9 times out of 10, will be the answer to if they won or not. LDO has been hyper inefficient, and I have continued to say I believe that's due to the fact that he has had no supporting cast. And you may remember last season he played in the championship in the playoffs with a wrist injury that required surgery during the summer. So he has not necessarily flourished in these big moments because he hasn't been given the chance to. But he's going up against a team that sure has some talent, but I don't know has the talent to slow him down. Our second best matchup is going to be Southeast Select and Lone Star. And this, I think, has the case for the fourth worst. So this is the third ranked. Lone Star has been tumbling. That's no surprise. That's been talked about plenty. Southeast Select has been rolling. That's no surprise. That's been talked about plenty. What are we getting out of Lone Star? We don't know. And that's why you can't really peg this one as a great story, a great matchup. Yeah, there's Nitty Gibson. Yeah, there's Jace McGez, and it's Trey Turner on the other side. Can either of them slow down Trey Turner? Sure, maybe. That's a conversation point. But for the most part, Southeast Select has been the best team. And again, this doesn't mean Lone Star can't pull it off. We talked about Originators really limping in. But Lone Star's been so mediocre to close out this season where at one point they were contending for the number 1 seed. And now they're the 8th seed. Why am I getting out of bed for that? That's our third ranked matchup in the Legend Conference. Our second ranked matchup, I'm going to go H-Town versus Yacht Club. Why? Well, H-Town has been up and down. At one point, it looked like they were going to be a 3 seed without a record that would warrant them being there. Instead, they hold on, and we're going to get a divisional matchup here between H-Town and Yacht Club, and that's why it's number 2, because you get two teams that already played each other 2 times. You get the rivalry of Miami and Houston. It's not really a bustling one, but it's there. But you get 2 teams that are very imperfect, and I think that's why this one is intriguing, because they're consistent. It's similar to Run DMV and Beast of the East. It's imperfect, which makes it perfect. There's a very real chance, I think, that Yacht Club could get to the conference title game. I really do. If they beat this team, if they beat H-Town, then they got a shot at Best Coast Ballers or APAC, both flawed. And then you win that and you're in. So the same goes for H-Town, obviously, but I think that's what makes this intriguing. You're 2 teams that don't have a ton of perfections, that have plenty of warts on their skin, but they could do just 2 small things, and suddenly you start rethinking their entire season. And it all starts in that game. And then, of course, the best matchup of the Legend Conference, Bay Area versus Showtime. Great rosters. I think it loses a little bit of its luster with the loss of Bronny James. That being said, Corey Yams versus Trey Hyman should be the first matchup on the parkade. Or the whatever the hell, on the marquee. There we go. That is 2 players that could revolutionize the game. Big, athletic, playmaking, handle the ball well. If either of them adds an outside shot, they're deadly. Great at getting downhill. They're going to match up. I don't know that there's a better player versus player matchup right now in this first round than Corey Yams versus Trey Hyman. I really don't. And that's why it's the best matchup in the Legend Conference. It might be the best matchup of the entire opening weekend. Again, all this starts August 12th, all of it on SimWorld TV, all of it in Houston, and it's going to be all of it filled with drama. Have a great weekend. Talk to you on Monday.